Shock Your Potential podcast with your host, Michael Sherlock. We all have potential, but sometimes we need inspiration to get us to our peak performance. Whether you are starting out in your career, ready to move up the corporate ladder, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship, Michael's guests provide powerful tools and resources to shock your potential. Shock Your Potential is a global professional development training company committed to your unique journey. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com. Listen in to today's expert.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Shock Your Potential. I have, of course, your host, Michael Sherlock. And as we know, all month long, we are trying to remember to stay flexible. And not just in our mindset, but really in our whole persona, I think, to be able to handle whatever comes at us. And this guest today, I think her story is so fascinating. You're going to love it. And talk about remaining flexible, even though in the beginning she had a plan for herself. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Rebekah Smith was earning her Ph.D., ready to begin a career in academia, in film academia. And she had her plan out. She had her life all mapped out. But one day she was at a conference and she was listening to somebody who was talking about how much they love this wonderful life of academia. And she's like, I don't think so. Maybe that's not my passion to teach film. But right then, at the same time, she was working with a horror festival in Wales. She was traveling all over Europe with film festivals. She was helping recruiting filmmakers. And all of those people were asking her things. They were, picking her brain, asking her for knowledge. So she was sharing ideas and tips. And she realized one day, ding, 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 maybe there's a business in this. And those filmmakers not only asked and took her advice, but they loved what she was doing as well. And so she did turn it into a business. When she actually jumped into this fully, she ultimately became recognized worldwide as, get this title, the Film Festival Doctor. Of all the titles people get, I think this one's so much fun. And she was an innovation in her field. And her company has won more than 800 awards for her clients. And she has supported 850 creatives to achieve their filmmaking dreams. So those of you who have some dreams about this, you might be really wanting to pay attention and probably follow up. But it wasn't all like a movie, although there's a happy ending. Or a happy current. Along the way, she made some mistakes. She, had some sputters, some, stumbles along the way until she finally listened to somebody who gave her some great business advice, which really propelled her forward. And so I know we'll talk today also about her book that is called Born to Do It, Becoming a Leader in a Business Niche. Becoming a leader of a business niche using powerful spiritual techniques. And she wants to help you from making some of the same mistakes she did and helping promote you to success as well. So, Rebekah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. That was a lovely intro. Really nice to be here. And it's very exciting now the book is going to be getting out there. So thank you for that lovely intro.
Oh, it is so much fun. And the first time you put a book out, it is so exciting. And then the second time you put a book out, you're like, okay, what am I doing now? Here we go again. Exactly. I'll just warn you on that one. But congratulations. And I love so much of your bio, so I couldn't, help but hit a lot of the highlights. But, I want to learn a little bit more about you and how you tell us about you, your business, how you help people to shock your potential. And ultimately, about this whole career, in filmmaking in a lot of variety of ways, because I bet there's a lot of people going, wow, I've always been interested in that, but I never knew how someone even got started. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
So it all happened, as you rightly said, by accident. I mean, I was actually one thing I realized that when I had that aha moment, as you mentioned, in the academia conference, which was isn't this the best thing in the world? And I thought, actually, no, it's not for me, was because people had told me what I should be doing with myself and my career. And I realized that when I began to produce the film festival that you mentioned, Abertoir Horror Festival, this actually is what I want to do. It's me coming alive. This is my sole purpose that has suddenly now come to the forefront. So it all kind of happened like literally unexpectedly, as you said. So my plan, or what I thought I should be doing through asking people's advice, what they think I should do with my life, for their own gain, not for mine, was working in the world of academia, so teaching, lecturing in film studies. And my PhD, it's a really good PhD. I really enjoyed doing the PhD. It was like, it was work, it was a job, but it was a PhD on Quentin Tarantino, looking at how his fans respond emotionally to his films. So it was a really
Oh,
good, interesting PhD. I really did enjoy that. And then it was a very isolating process. I found that it was a lot of writing. It's a lot of work to yourself. You're in a room a lot. So I hadn't really had much social interaction apart from people that are doing PhDs as well, but they were having time alone to write theirs. So my friend Gaz, who is one of the nicest people in the world, he said to me, "I've been asked to produce a horror film festival by the Film Council in Wales in the UK. He said, do you want to help out?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? It's something to do. Gets me out of the house." So
right.
this hobby job, or this like thing to pass the time, whilst I was really doing it, really getting involved in it, was actually what I should be doing with my life. This was my sole purpose. This is what I was born to do. I actually came
Mm.
alive during the festival when we started to produce it, when we were working together on it and with the whole team and meeting filmmakers. I just felt like me. I never felt that before in a very long time in a career context. It was really interesting. So I thought, hang on, something's happened. There's a bit of a shift. And then the idea of my business came about through that festival because I love speaking to filmmakers and hanging out with them and, obviously doing all the parties that you do at film festivals. And they always said, we love doing this. We love coming to festivals. We love seeing our film on the big screen, having a laugh, getting drunk. It's so much fun. But we actually don't know how to get our film into a film festival or get our film seen. We're just hoping for the
Ah.
best by going online and going on the portals. We actually don't know who to turn to or to ask to get our film into festivals to help strategize. And I was like, well,
Mhm.
there we go, a light bulb moment, because I knew how to do that through my experience doing the festivals. So I could help those filmmakers. That was what my gift was. And that all came about by accident.
Just by and following your hobby. I mean, I love that. I love how I wrote down like the hobby became my sole purpose. But
Mm.
I think it's such a great story because it's about being aware of what you're doing in your free time that does give you joy and asking yourself, is there something about this that may be more than just a hobby? And not, it doesn't have to be, but what a great wake up call to merge your actual education training and PhD with a part of the business continuum that you love.
Exactly. It was. I mean, the PhD helped me a lot. It wasn't just something that
Mhm.
just was, I did it. The PhD actually helped me figure out how to find the gap in the market and the
Mhm.
niche because I didn't have any business skills. I had obviously academic skills. I had background in, being a personal assistant. So I had all of that, which was really useful. But the PhD just helped me took it one step further to really get it into a very organized system and a proper business. So yeah, it did. And I'm really grateful for the PhD, always will be. But it just wasn't for me. But unfortunately, my supervisor couldn't see that. So he was very much like, why do you want to do the academia? Because obviously that's his gift. That's his sole purpose. That's what he does. So
Right.
he doesn't work in the film industry. It's a very different industry. The two of them are like chalk and cheese. Like academia is, you've got fun people and you've got great people, but it is very different to filmmaking and film production and film distribution. The whole lot. It's just a whole different kettle of fish. So you
Mhm.
can't compare the two at all. Like the evil naughty sisters kind of thing. Um, but what I saw was was filmmakers making fantastic films in the independent film world, but not getting them out there was quite sad. And obviously, my supervisor didn't see it, but then he understood it as time went on and
Mhm.
saw the success it had. So that was good. But you just know when it's not your right path when you just aren't connected to source and also the project that you're doing. Because it got to the point where I was enjoying the PhD. Don't get me wrong, but it felt
Right.
like work. It felt like
Yeah.
work. Not like horrendous, but just it was a challenge. Whereas with the festival, everything fell into place effortlessly, and I could literally just get involved in it for hours. We did like 16-hour days and don't know where the time has gone. And just immersion was natural.
Well, and I think it's a great reminder because people are always asking me, career advice, and I now have this following of actually younger people, which is great. They're like, "What should I get my degree in?" And I always say it doesn't matter because unless you're going to become a doctor, so you're going to go to medical school to become a doctor, and it still doesn't mean you can't turn around and be an actor. I mean, we have
Mm-hmm.
or you're becoming a lawyer to become a lawyer. You're probably more set in a course. But my degree is in education. And I started out as a teacher and I taught 1 year and I thought, I don't want to teach in the school system.
Yeah.
But I didn't say, oh my gosh, what else am I going to do? It's the only thing I'm trained for. I said, how else can I use this degree? And, so today I'm a teacher in a different way because I teach leadership and sales and professional development. So I took my degree and I made it work for me. And your background with that, I think it's really a great lesson to remind you, just because you have a PhD doesn't mean that academia is the only path for you. That knowledge alone, those credentials behind you, the hard work it put, also gave you so much more information. And you could use that as you evolved your journey as well.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And one thing the PhD helps you really do is organize, is time management and organization, because you've got so many books you have to read, and to really streamline and focus them into a kind of like collating what they all say and what the patterns are. So you have to like really tie everything in and rein it all in. So there's really good skills there for project management, big time. So when with my colleagues who work with me, they're all brilliant and they're very good at putting into our system. So I have a very organized system in place, which is through learning how to break everything down to bite-sized chunks with loads of books in academia, and how to read a book a different way to other people might do. And that can translate quite well with the business, actually, believe it or not. But also it helps you like really home in on your niche, because one of the things we mentioned in the book is you really have to identify and home into your niche, because obviously, or niche, sorry, but niche.
That's okay. Niche,
Potato. Yeah, same thing. So one of the things actually that is important is you got to figure out, if your niche can work as a business, obviously, if there's a market for it. And people did say to me when I went to the Cannes Film Festival the first time in 2010, had this idea for the business, and people were very positive, like, oh yes, well, it does sound very good on paper, but you've got no one else to really compare this to, or like a winning model. So you might have to work for free to show this works, because no one really knows what this is at the moment. There aren't many of you around. There's probably like two or three, and they weren't doing it full time like you want to do. So you might have to, bring this into the UK quite carefully and, drip feed, or show you can do it but work for free, because it's something where there is no track record. You can't compare it. But clearly there's a market because people want it, but you got to figure out trial and error, prices, the system, it all come together. But it'll put a lot of hard work in that respect, but you will get there eventually, which I did. So that was important, because then that helped me break down the whole business and figure out, what I wanted the business to look like, and also with the niche. So I work in the area of film distributions. That's a niche in itself, but then it's always important to really laser focus your areas of expertise, with mine being film festival distribution. So again, not obviously very niche. It's the same like with any niche, like, like for example, social media. That's a big niche. So then you figure out which is your best angle. Are you more equipped to help people grow their business on Instagram, or make video content for LinkedIn? There's many like minor niches there that you're going to be the best at. There's going to be a market somewhere. It's about research, but I'm grateful that I know how to break down a business to make it something that is marketable and has an audience.
Now, so I know that you got this kind of aha moment at a horror film festival. Yeah. Did you stay within that niche, or did you broaden out and just keep it from the film festival as a whole?
So I stuck within the niche of horror at first. So producing festivals, I stick to the horror genre just with Abertoir. Then when I moved to London, because I was in a place called Wales in UK, so that is a long way away from London, about 4.5 hour minimum drive, probably even 7 to certain parts of London. So it's not a commutable distance, but it's a very different area of the world to live in. It's very different. It's quite a shock. So I couldn't build a business being in Wales. I had to be in events and be there and be around with it and have the brand out there. So I had to move. So when I moved to London, I then got the business up and running. But it was a bit of a challenge at first, because it was a different area. So it was also a different place to be. So it was having to adjust very quickly and then put everything together. But I certainly had in my head an idea what I wanted the business to be, and it was hard to articulate it at first, because I didn't know what to really say, because I had no business training. And the PhD always saved me, and the sole purpose saved me, because I knew exactly what the passion was, and that shone through, which helped people believe and trust in me.
Right. Right. Wow. So as you got better at this and got to the point where you didn't have to give your services away for free,
Yeah.
because I know that that's, in the speaker world, that's kind of the same thing. People are like, oh, that's great. You're a speaker. There's lots of other speakers. So you better do as much as you can for free when you can. The challenge with that, from speakers, at least it has been for me and others that I've spoken with, is at that point where you finally say, I'm not speaking for free anymore. I got to earn a living.
Yeah.
And how you adjust people's mindset to make the shift with you, especially if there's somebody that you've worked with for a little bit. So how did you successfully make that transition?
That took a lot of time, but it was built upon the branding of the business and also being present and being able to really talk about how I would help people and solve their problems. So at the beginning, it was hard because I didn't have any business training, but it helped a lot. And the business turned around overnight when I met my business strategist, Jolanda Miliotto. She's actually got 2 chapters in my book because she was a lifesaver. So whereas I was remembering like my structure, my clients in my head, and there's no system in place. I didn't know how to do a sales pitch. She literally overnight told me where it was all going wrong. So it was organized to a degree. It was organized. It was, I had a system in place and I was remembering things, but I was doing quite stressful. So I was trying just to really articulate what I wanted to say to people. And she said, no, you need to really work on your sales pitch, because what you're guilty of, and everyone is guilty of this in the beginning, is when you're talking about your business, wanting to like close a deal and sell yourself to them and build that trust and rapport, is that the worst thing to do is just to throw information at a potential client. You really need to let them talk like 80% of the time, and you talk 20% of the time, so that you can then explain how you will solve their problem. And when you do that, if you ask open-ended questions, say, so what are the problems are you having on the festival circuit with the film? They go, oh, well, we're getting no results. And then you have a little question like, which festivals have we sent it to? I'm like, oh, well, you're missing something here. There's a gap in your little market, is that you're not selling at the festivals, which are for short films. So, for example, doing all the wrong festivals, things like that. So the way is she said, to really just keep talking to them, but let them lead, and you then ask follow-ups and build this rapport that will gain trust because it shows your knowledge. And be calm when you do it, and then do your research as well before you meet them. The event you're going to, the people that could be there, just know what they are and know the background, and it will help a lot. And it did. Like, I remember when she told me, I literally was, when I first met people, I didn't know what to say. I'd say something like, oh, we get your film into a festival and do all the work for you. They'd be like, oh, well, how's that? So it just became convoluted and a bit confusing. I had to say it myself and summarize it all. But then when I spoke with her, she told me how to break it down and how the system works was really helpful, because it got me sales deals and it got people to really believe in the brand, and it helped me say what I wanted to say very succinctly and in a way which got them hooked.
Yes. So this is just a random question out of my own, kind of just from the side, from the perspective, because I've never been to a film festival and I don't know all the logistics about it. But let's say I'm an independent filmmaker and I get accepted at one of these film festivals. I'm assuming that then I show up, I fund my whole self getting there, and I'm basically there praying that somebody's going to say, hey, we like your film and we're going to pick it up. Or, what are the outcomes and what are the expenses for these filmmakers when they're at this stage?
The outcomes tend to be what your goals are. So I always ask my clients is, what do you want to achieve from the festival circuit with your film? And if they say networking, then obviously it's great to go because you'll meet like-minded people. If they say winning awards, then potentially yes. If they want to see on the big screen because they want to get feedback for Instagram, for their profile, for not pride, but for branding, they're all important reasons to go. And it can get expensive if you go to the wrong ones or you don't budget. So when it comes to traveling to any festival, as you mentioned, yes, it is from their own pocket. Some festivals can contribute towards accommodation depending on where you're traveling from. But generally, you've got to think about money for, obviously, travel, accommodation, but also subsistence. You got to think about money to spend on food, drink. Do you have to hire
Hmm.
a car? You're going to rely on Uber? Can you walk? Will it be metro? Will it be trains? And also your festival passes.
Hmm.
You have to buy them in advance to get them a bit cheaper. So it does add up, but you have to think of those key things, because if you're going to a country like South Africa, that will be a lot cheaper than going somewhere like Tribeca in New York, which will be a
Yeah.
fortune.
Yes,
So
no kidding.
it always depends upon where you want to go and where you can afford to go. So it's important to budget at the beginning and really think about, right, will this festival be able to help me achieve my goals? Has it got lots of networking? Yes. Are there industry connections? Yes. Is there industry workshops? Yes. Well, there's a good start. It's worth the shot. People are going to be there who might be useful for me, and to just be there for the film and promote it. So there's a lot of think about why you want to be there before you actually go, but also think about your budgets too is a crucial thing. And it's always good to think about them in the beginning before the film's made, ideally. But if it's
Hmm.
not, and when it's finished, that's fine. You can still work around it. But just be very, very cutthroat and strict where you go, and don't overspend to get the most out of the experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've never really thought about it. It's always one of those things that, I'm like, one day I will show up at the, whatever.
Sundance.
Yeah, it's Sundance. Exactly. It's just a plane ride away for me.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It's not far.
And I'll just wander around. I have no need to be there whatsoever, but you never know who you might run into. I
It's
love it.
cold
So,
there. It's
oh.
cold at Sundance. Just a bit FYI.
Yes, it definitely is. Absolutely. And just so you know, it at the in at the Park City, the at the Olympic area where they had the Olympics, whatever year they were, they have a zip line. And I don't know
Yep.
if it goes in the wintertime, but I
Hmm.
did that once, and it's at the same pitch as the Olympic ski jump, the big ski jump.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that was my first ever zip line.
Wow. Oh my
It was a
God.
lot. I was pretty terrified. And apparently, like the first, it only takes you about 45 seconds to get from the top of the mountain down. And the first 5 seconds, I screamed with pure terror. I was like, I'm going to die. And
Oh
then
dear.
when it levels off that first drop, I screamed with pure joy. And we got to the bottom. I mean, we'd waited in line for an hour to go down this thing. And when we got down, the guy at the bottom said, if we weren't about to close, I would pay to have you go do that again. He's like, everyone in the park stopped and listened to you.
It's like, wow. Oh my gosh. It's like a showstopper.
It's great. So next time I would suggest it. It's definitely fun. I think
Definitely.
it still goes in the winter.
Amazing.
Tell us real quickly before we kind of get into, the near the end here. Tell us quickly a little bit about your book. What was your inspiration? I know most people just sometimes have a drive to put that out there, but tell us a little bit about your book and why you wanted to put this, for other people to use as a model.
So again, another story of totally out the blue, unexpected. But during the pandemic, I became very inspired to write more. I launched a blog on my website, and also I was invited to talk about my story and share my story in an Indian book called Unique Positive Stories to Inspire You about your life story.
Oh,
So I thought, well, that's nice. And also, it was a very in-depth, like 10-page interview about everything, and it's
wow.
really in depth. So I enjoyed writing that. And a publishing company read it. She was a colleague of mine from a while ago, and she said, "Oh, have you ever thought about sharing your own story in your own book before?" And she said, "Have you ever thought about writing one? Because I'm a publisher." And I thought, not really. But then we had a talk about it, and I was like, "Oh, I see. This actually could be quite good to do, because obviously I've written before with a PhD. I was a little bit at first that I don't really want to go back to writing, because I've written a PhD and that was bad enough, a long journey. But then I knew how to write, so I thought, well, I know how to write, so I bet I can do this. So I'm going to put myself to do it." So we had a long conversation, and also other people gave me feedback on the interview too, and they were business owners, and they all said that you helped me stay motivated during the pandemic and how to adapt my business during this time, and your honesty and your story helped me reduce my fears and loneliness, because you talked about, when you're doing the PhD by yourself, but also with the business too, that it was all you running it, being the head of the show. And that's like when the penny
Hmm.
dropped. I was like, yes, I'm going to write a book about my story, but also how to fuse business practices and spiritual practices together. So it's a book that shows people how to launch your first business and tap into your soul purpose using these essential techniques from business spirituality worlds, so you can co-create the universe to make the business that you want. So it all came together through, again, another journey. And I didn't know I had this book in me but it was there, and I'm glad it's come out because I'm so proud of it, and it's already helping people in the first week of release. So that's just what I wanted from it, and it makes me so happy.
I love it. That's wonderful. And I think, I love your story because you keep talking about, things that just kind of out of the blue. But I think part of out of the blue is, you know, allowing our heads to turn and look around us and not always be focused, in one area, which I think is really in line with my January theme of, it's a new year, be real flexible in your focus. Let's not get into the same places we were in 2020 thinking, okay, here's our plan. It's a game plan. It's going to be great. And then, oh no, everything's gone. What are your thoughts or suggestions for my listeners and viewers to keep that flexibility, to have kind of an agile mind, to look for those opportunities that might be out of the blue, but you're seeing them because you are open to them?
So one thing I would advise is now it's like, New Year 2021, people are still probably the pandemic is still in the background. But what the pandemic has taught us, everybody, is that you can't rely on anybody but yourself. And the whole job for life does not exist anymore. I don't think it ever has, but I think the pandemic is just bringing that up to the surface. Like, you can't rely on that big corporate job forever because big corporate companies on was working now. Some people had to shut down. There's redundancies, layoffs, everything being fired. So what I would advise all of your listeners is it's important to combine both those practices that are the business practices of entrepreneurship, having a business, like infrastructure as the basics, but also incorporating into that spiritual techniques, as I mentioned in the book, is to think outside the box. So become an entrepreneur that is one who thinks outside the box, because when you combine both together, you get that right balance. So when you're on your own, at first for me, it was really scary because I didn't know those spiritual techniques at all. That came on the journey when I was moved to London about a year into it. Then I began to open my mind more, and I realized how you co-create, and my perception changed, and then that helped my business. And the trust and the faith comes together when you put them together. So I would really say now is to be very, very independent as you can be in your career and your personal life. And when you do those things and put them all together and fuse them, you'll feel so much more confident, and you'll be able to remain resilient and grounded through the next challenge.
I love it. Absolutely. Oh gosh, Rebekah, you have so much to offer. It's been, I could just interview you for hours and talk, pick your brain on everything, but we'll have all your contact information on our show notes. But in case somebody wants to look you up right now because they want to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Best way would be my website, which is RebekahLouisaSmith.com, and also Instagram, which is at RebekahFilmDR.
Ooh, very good.
Film doctor.
Exactly. Well, before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
Yes. One thing I would say really is do not give up, because your soul purpose will never let you down. So always guide you in the right direction to where you need to be. Ask the universe to help tap into it if you need to, but really do not stop. Keep going forwards, and remember that you're on the right path when you tune into your soul purpose.
I love it. I just wrote down, your soul purpose will never let you down. I couldn't agree more. Rebekah, thank you so much. What an honor to have been able to learn more from you. I am excited to stay connected. Thank you so much for being a guest with us today.
Thank you. You've been wonderful. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com, including details on Michael's 2 best-selling books. Tell me more, how to ask the right questions and get the most out of your employees, and sales mixology, why the most potent sales and customer experiences follow a recipe for success. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.